Hi! Now that you're familiar with the terminology of AngularJS, it's time to start coding your first application. To help us on this task, we're going to use a boilerplate called Angularseed. A boilerplate is nothing more than a reusable application skeleton. It will not only create your project folder for you and supply a blank application to give you a place to start, but also provide you all the tools you're going to need to manage, run, and test your application. You can find the official Angularseed project on github.com/angular/angular-seed. That's the official Angular boilerplate, developed by the Angular team, but it's not the only one available out there. For enterprise applications and large-scale projects, you will probably want to find a boilerplate that better suits your project. But for the purpose of this course, the official one will do just fine. To download Angularseed, you will need to copy the clone URL from here and then go into your command prompt if you're on Windows, or to your terminal if you are on Linux or Mac OS. Navigate to the folder where you want to create your project. In this case, I'll create it in my user folder. Let's create a new directory called AngularJS. Let's navigate into this directory and let's do a git clone and paste the clone URL. This will clone or copy the entire project to your hard drive. This may take a minute, but alternatively, you can either download the project as a zip file from here, or you can clone it using the desktop application if you installed it. Now that Git is done downloading the project, let's navigate into the directory just created and then run the command npm install. npm stands for Node Package Manager, and it's the whole reason you install Node.js in the first place. What this command will do is to download and install all the programs and libraries you are going to need in order to manage, run, and test your Angular application. This process may take forever, especially if that's the first time you're doing it, since there's a lot of stuff to install. In the meantime, let's switch to Sublime and take a look at the folder structure of the project. Okay, so that's what your application file structure looks like right now. First, we have an app folder to contain the files of your application. We have an E2E tests folder that contains the specifications for the end-to-end tests. We're gonna get to that later. And then we have a few configuration files that you don't really have to care about right now. Inside the app folder, we have the important files of your application. First, you have the index.html. This is the main file of your application, and it's where all the other files will be loaded from. Alternatively, we have index-async.html. That is basically the same file, but configured to load the AngularJS framework asynchronously. We're not gonna use it right now. Then we have the app.js file. Here is where you initialize your app and configure the routes of your application. Moving on, we have the app.css file that contains your application CSS. Then we have a few extra folders. The view1 and view2 folders you're seeing here are two example views that are pre-configured in the Angularseed project. Each view contains three files. The view1.html is the template of the view, the view1.js is the controller of the view, and the view1test.js is the unit test suite for your controller. You're supposed to create as many directories as views of your application. We're gonna get to that later. Finally, we have the components folder that is supposed to contain the other components of your app, like filters, directives, factories, and service. The Angularseed project comes pre-configured with an example component called version that contains an interpolate filter, a version directive, and a version module. Each one of these files has a correspondent unit test files associated to it with the same name followed by _test. As we run through the course, we're gonna be familiar with each one of these components. The important part right now is to understand where you can find each file. Without losing too much time on details right now, let's take a look on how to run your application. Once npm is done installing, go back to your terminal and enter the command npm start. This will install the last components you need to run your application, and then we'll initialize a local server for you, and you'll be able to see your app in action. Now go back to your browser, go to localhost 8000/app, and there you go. The Angularseed app is now up and running. In the next video, we're gonna learn how to go on and build our own application from here. See you there.